to go ahead and give you a tutorial video for Lab 3. Most of these labs I'm going to have a tutorial video, that way you can go ahead and follow along. We're going to go through step by step of what is going to be expected for this lab and how to complete it. So the goal for this is to link some HTML pages together. The first thing that you're going to do is go ahead and download this root folder. I already have some materials here that you'll want to start with, so you can just click here to download it. It'll probably go to your downloads folder. You'll see a zip file, so you'll need to uncompress that. If you're on Mac, you can just double click it and it should decompress. You may have to right click and hit unzip if you're on Windows. And you can just trash that zip folder now that you have your opened version. And this is the file we're going to be working with. So let's go ahead and open that up. You'll see that we have a couple of different things here. We have 3 different index HTML pages that we're going to link together. The pages are inside of a folder called Pages, a subfolder. Then we also have a subfolder called Assets that's going to have a PDF in there that we're going to link to. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and just start by opening index in Visual Studio Code. And you can just right click on it and hit open with. And this is what it's going to look like. You can see it's already populated with some code to get started, some of that fundamental code, and then some text we're going to work with. You can see right now this is what the page looks like. It's very unformatted. We have what we want displayed, but yeah, no formatting. Our end goal is to have a formatted page that looks like this. So usually I'll have a screenshot of what your end goal is going to be in these labs. And then the first thing that we want to do is go ahead and create that heading 1. So we're going to apply heading 1 tags here, and I'm going to do 2 different heading tags because I want to make sure that they're on 2 separate lines. If you only had 1 heading tag surrounding these, and let's say H1 and then an end H1 tag, what will happen is it'll all be that heading, but it's going to be on 1 line. So to push those on 2 different lines, what I'm going to do is surround each of these with heading tags. Now if we save and refresh, this is what it looks like. Alright. The next thing we want to do is go ahead and add that horizontal rule. So let's add a horizontal rule right under that, and that's just the HR tag. This one doesn't need a closing tag. Beautiful. And then the next thing we want to do is style our horizontal rule. So you can see in our formatted final version, the horizontal rule is only taking up 50% of the screen, and then I also have a float left on it, so that it's aligned to that left of the screen instead of centering on the screen. So let's go ahead and add, in our horizontal rule, we want to add a style attribute. So we're going to say style equals, and then here we can say width 50%, and then a semicolon, float left. Alright, so right now it is kind of pushing the paragraph up to float left, and we don't want this, so I'm gonna go ahead and just add a page break right under this, and that's just BR. There we go. And again, the reason that we're doing float left is because if we don't, what it's gonna do is it's gonna center that horizontal rule, and we don't want that. So float left is just telling us let it float to the left side of the screen, and then again adding that page break right there underneath is going to keep the P tag from pushing upward. We want to go ahead and create the links. So right now, if we open up our file, you can see that we don't have the links below that it shows right here. So that's what we want to create, is just a little line that has the structure for those links. And what we're going to do that is we're just going to create a paragraph tag. So right under the other P tags before the end of the body, I'm going to create a new P tag, and I'm going to go ahead and write that text in. So it's last class, then one of those little bars that you can click on your keyboard, next class, and then another bar, and then course schedule. So last class, bar, next class, bar, and class schedule. Jeez Louise. Okay, and then again, make sure that you have your ending p tag. So now what that's going to look like is that. Excellent. And if you want, you can add a page break to kind of push it down, or you can add a non-breaking space, up to you. But yeah, that'll look like that. And now what we want to do is make these actually into links. So what we're going to do is make sure that we look at the directory structure, and we're going to link to these other HTML files inside of our pages folder. So if we go back to Visual Studio Code, and let's go ahead and add those in there. So we need to surround each of these with some A tags to make them into 3 separate links. So we'll do these one at a time. And they don't have to be on the same line. The p tag will keep them on the same, they don't have to be on the same line of code. They're within the same p tag, they'll stay on the same line when they're displayed. So we can do these 3 different lines if we want, just to keep it nice and clean. And let's go ahead and say A. And let's close each of these with an A tag. Now, I don't want the little bar spacer in between them to be part of the clickable link, so I'm actually going to end my A tag here. So that last class is what's displayed. I'm going to do the same thing for next class. And right now, I'm just adding the opening and closing A tags. So these are actually empty links. And if I save that, you can go preview this. They're not actually linked to anything yet, okay? But let's go ahead and add those links. And so we're going to start by doing href equals, and then we're going to put our file path in here. So remember, you need to remember where you're starting and then when you're ending. So we're starting from the index page, and we want to link to last class. So we need to say look in pages, then last class. So first we're going to say pages, then slash last class.html. And then it's going to be very similar for next class. We're going to go href equals a, or not a, href equals pages, and then next class. And then for the last one, we want it to look inside our assets folder. So we're going to go href equals assets slash, and then should be able to just put the file name in there. So now if we refresh, you can see our pages are actually linking. And if we click on the syllabus, it's just going to open up an old version of this syllabus. Go ahead and format the other pages. So right now, our first page is formatted, but when we go to last class and next class, it's not formatted. It's just that initial text that you downloaded. So let's go ahead and format them similarly to how we formatted the main page. You can go ahead and just, let's go to that root folder, just open those up in Visual Studio Code. And we'll start with the last class. So remember, what we want to do is go ahead and add headings. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then add a horizontal rule. And then remember, we want to add that style attribute. So let's go ahead and add that. And then I'm going to do width 50% and float left. Then add my page break. So now, there you go. It's already looking great. And now we need to do the same thing to next class. So let's go do that in next class as well. Give it those h1 tags. Give it a horizontal rule. And width 50%. flow left, and then a little page break. All of these are formatted nicely. The last thing we want to do is make sure that we're adding links to the bottom of both of these others pages that link to all the other pages. So let's go to last class, and again we want it inside the body but after the p tag, and we're going to create a new p tag, and we want to, instead of linking, so if we go back here, we look on our index page, we link to last class, next class, and class schedule. We don't want to link to last class again because we're on the last class page, and if we're on last class, we don't need to link it to itself. So instead, I'm going to say home, and then we can do next class and class schedule. And you can copy and paste some of these from over here to make it easier for you as you're doing this, but I'm just going to write it out so it doesn't get confusing. And don't forget, we want to make sure that we close that p tag. So if we go to last class, see we've got that on there. I'm again also just going to add like a page break. You don't have to, but I just think it looks a little nicer. And then let's go ahead and add those links in there. So remember, you need to do A, and I don't want this bar to be displayed, so I'm gonna end the link before that bar is on there. Well, it's still displayed in the paragraph, but I don't want it to become clickable. Like, I don't want it to be part of that text. And I'll show you what it will look like, what I mean. I'm gonna do it with this one. If I surrounded the whole thing, actually, I need to go ahead and add in a link so you can see what it looks like. See that? It'll make the bar part of that clickable. I don't want that bar to be part of the clickable, so I'm going to put it outside the A tag, okay? Okay. So now we want to go ahead and add those links in. So to get to the home page remember our starting point is last class, we want to tell it to back up and then find index. So let's go to href equals, and then back up / index.html. Now for next class, we're starting at last class. Next class is within the same folder, so we don't need to tell it to look for any folders. We can just link straight to nextclass.html. And then for class schedule, we need to tell last class to go back out, okay? Because we're not in the pages folder, so we need to tell it to go back out of that folder, / then we need to tell it to go into the assets folder. Then we tell it to look for the syllabus PDF. Alright? So now, alright? And if you don't want to download it again, you can see the tiny little pop-up at the bottom there that will tell you that it's linking to that, so you don't have to do that to test it again. Alright, let's do that for the last page, which is next class. So let's go over to next class, and under that we want to make our new p tag, opening and closing p tags, and we want to go to home, and I'm going to do this one all in one line so you can see what it looks like. Actually, no, I'm not going to do that because it's going to get really long. Alright, home, and then since we're on next class, we don't need to go to next class, so we're going to do last class, and then class schedule. I think that's what we called it. Yeah. Okay. And then let's go ahead and add those A tags in there. So put my A tags in. You can do the links as you're doing this if you want. I'm just going to do all the A tags first and then add my links in. Doesn't really matter what order you do it in. And then I'm also going to add that page break. So it looks like this now. have everything but our links. So let's go ahead and add those links in. So from next class, to get to the home page, we want to tell it back it up, get out of that folder, and then index.html. For last class, similarly to what we did for when we were linking on our last document, we are starting on next class. We want to link to last class. They're in the same folder, that pages folder. So we just have to literally link to the document itself. So lastclass.html. And then for class schedule, you're going to say, all right, back it up out of the pages folder because we're not going to be in the pages folder. Then we want to look in the assets folder and then the name of the document in there. Okay? So now we save that. Check it out. Looks great. All right. Now make sure everything looks good. Once you are happy with everything, make sure your changes are saved. Quit Visual Studio Code and then go ahead and zip that folder back up. So compress it, zip it, whatever you need to do, and upload that zip file. It's only going to accept zip files, so do not try to upload anything other than a zip file or you're going to find it's not going to let you. That's all for this lab. Good luck.